A few years ago, a dark blue Tacoma pulled into my bay with 187,000 miles on it. The owner had already been to 2 shops. One told him he needed a full transmission rebuild. The other said it was time to start looking for a replacement vehicle. He handed me an estimate that made my stomach turn. Nearly $4,800 for a rebuild on a truck that ran fine, except for one thing: it hesitated on upshifts, occasionally slipped between second and third, and occasionally jolted going into overdrive. I asked him one question: when did you last do anything to the transmission? He stared at me like I had asked something philosophical. The answer was never. That truck left my shop 3 days later driving like it had 40,000 miles on it. Not because I rebuilt it, not because I replaced it, because I understood 4 specific upgrades that almost every Toyota owner completely ignores. And after what I showed him, he told me he wished someone had explained this to him the first day he drove the truck off the lot. Today, I am walking you through every single one of those upgrades. These are not modifications. They are not performance builds. They are legitimate, proven interventions that restore function, extend life, and transform how a Toyota transmission behaves. Whether you own a Tacoma, a 4Runner, a Tundra, a Camry, or a Highlander, everything in this video applies. And by the time we finish, you will understand why most Toyota owners spend money replacing transmissions that could have been saved for a fraction of the cost. Let me start by telling you something the dealership service counter will almost never say. Toyota transmissions are exceptional. They are genuinely some of the most durable automatic transmissions ever engineered. The A340, the A750, the U660E, and especially the newer 8-speed direct shift transmissions are legendary in the industry for one reason: they last when they are properly maintained. The problem is, almost nobody properly maintains them. And when they start behaving badly, the assumption is always failure. It is almost never failure. What it almost always is a system that has been quietly starving, overheating, and degrading in ways the owner never noticed, because Toyota builds these units to tolerate neglect longer than any competitor. That tolerance is a gift, but it is also a trap. Drivers push past 100,000 miles without a single transmission service, feel a shimmy or a delayed shift, and walk straight into a shop that confirms their worst fear. What almost nobody stops to ask is whether the transmission is actually broken or whether it simply needs to be corrected. There is a massive difference between those two things, and understanding that difference is where the upgrades begin. The first upgrade is one that the vast majority of Toyota owners have never heard of, and it does more to transform transmission behavior than almost anything else you can do. It is called a transmission flush combined with a full fluid specification upgrade. And before you stop me because you have heard about transmission flushes being dangerous, I want to address that directly, because the warning that gets passed around is real but wildly misapplied. The warning about flushes applies to severely neglected transmissions with sludge buildup, where forcing new fluid through at pressure dislodges debris that then clogs solenoids and valve bodies. That risk is real, but it applies to a fraction of cases. More importantly, the solution is not to avoid servicing the transmission. The solution is to do it correctly, with the right equipment and the right fluid. Toyota transmissions are filled from the factory with Toyota Genuine Automatic Transmission Fluid, specifically WS fluid, in most models from 2004 onward. WS stands for World Standard, and it is a low-viscosity, fully synthetic formulation engineered specifically for Toyota's tight hydraulic tolerances. The solenoids and valve bodies in these transmissions are calibrated around that fluid's specific friction coefficient. When WS fluid degrades, which it does after roughly 30,000 to 60,000 miles of real-world use, despite Toyota's outdated lifetime claim, shift quality begins to drift. Clutch packs engage slightly differently. Solenoid response slows. The transmission control module compensates by adjusting adaptive shift points, and the driver notices nothing until suddenly everything feels wrong at once. Replacing degraded WS fluid with fresh Toyota genuine WS or an approved equivalent like Aisin ATF WS or Valvoline. MaxLife Full Synthetic ATF does not just replace fluid. It restores the hydraulic environment the transmission was designed to operate in. I have watched harsh, jerky transmissions become smooth in a single afternoon from nothing more than a proper drain, fill, and flush sequence using the correct fluid. It feels like magic because the change is immediate, but it is not magic. It is chemistry working the way it was designed to work. The second upgrade targets something specific to Toyota's modern electronically controlled automatics that almost no owner ever addresses: the transmission control module adaptive reset. Every Toyota automatic transmission made in the last 2 decades uses an adaptive learning system. The transmission control module, TCM, constantly monitors shift timing, clutch engagement pressure, throttle position, and vehicle speed. It learns how you drive and adjusts its behavior accordingly. This is genuinely brilliant engineering. The problem is that over time, those learned adaptations accumulate errors. A transmission that once shifted perfectly begins adapting around minor faults, a slightly slow solenoid response, a borderline clutch pack, or a brief sensor anomaly. The TCM does not panic. It quietly compensates. Those compensations stack on top of each other over years, and eventually the transmission is operating on a map that looks nothing like what Toyota's engineers intended. Drivers describe it in different ways. It feels sluggish. It seems like it searches for gears. It hesitates at highway speeds. It shifts late. All of those symptoms are often not mechanical failures at all. They are an adaptive memory problem, and the fix costs nothing. Resetting the adaptive memory forces the transmission control module, abbreviated TCM, to wipe its stored behavioral patterns and relearn from scratch. On most Toyota models, this is done by disconnecting the negative battery terminal for a minimum of 15 to 20 minutes, ensuring all residual voltage drains from the system capacitors. This clears the stored tables in the TCM and forces a full relearn cycle. Some models, particularly newer ones with more sophisticated transmission control modules, benefit from a dealer-level reset using Toyota TechStream diagnostic software, which allows a targeted transmission memory clear without affecting other modules. After a reset, the transmission will feel slightly different for the first 100 to 200 miles as the TCM relearns. During this window, drive calmly. Vary your speed naturally. Avoid aggressive acceleration. Give the module clean, predictable inputs, and it will relearn clean, predictable behavior. Drivers who do this and follow the relearn process correctly consistently report transmission behavior that feels dramatically sharper and more confident than it has in years. The third upgrade targets Toyota trucks and body-on-frame SUVs, though it benefits virtually every Toyota with a rear differential and a transfer case. It is the differential and transfer case fluid service, performed together with the transmission service as a complete drivetrain fluid correction. Here is why this matters for transmission behavior. Toyota's four-wheel drive and all-wheel drive systems share mechanical loads with the transmission. When differential fluid degrades, resistance increases throughout the drivetrain. That resistance shows up as increased load on the transmission output shaft. The transmission control module detects this load and adjusts shift behavior to compensate. Effectively, the transmission is being asked to manage a mechanical problem that has nothing to do with the transmission itself. Over time, this compounds. The transmission works harder than it should. Fluid temperatures rise slightly higher on every drive. Clutch pack wear accelerates, shift adaptation drifts. Replace the front and rear differential fluid with Toyota Genuine Differential Gear Oil LX or an approved GL5 75W90 full synthetic. Replace the transfer case fluid with Toyota Genuine ATF Type T4 or the specified equivalent for your model. This eliminates that hidden drivetrain drag. The transmission suddenly has the mechanical environment it was designed to operate in. Shift quality improves. Transmission temperatures drop. Fuel economy often recovers by a noticeable margin. And the transmission control module stops fighting a battle it was never supposed to fight. This one change alone has transformed the driving behavior of more high-mileage Tacomas and 4Runners in my experience than any other single service I perform. It is invisible on paper, dramatic in execution, and completely ignored by the vast majority of Toyota owners. The fourth upgrade is the one most people would least expect, and it is what separates owners who truly understand their vehicles from everyone else. It is the installation of an external transmission cooler and the targeting of transmission operating temperature as a core maintenance goal. Toyota includes a factory transmission cooler integrated into the radiator on most models, and it is genuinely adequate for normal driving conditions. The problem is that most Toyota owners do not drive under normal conditions. Towing a trailer, hauling heavy loads, driving in stop-and-go traffic during summer, climbing grades in mountainous terrain, or running the air conditioning hard in extreme heat, all of these push transmission fluid temperatures above the range where Toyota's integrated cooler can maintain optimal performance. The engineering data on this is unambiguous. Automatic transmission fluid begins to oxidize meaningfully above approximately 200 degrees Fahrenheit. At 240 degrees Fahrenheit, oxidation accelerates rapidly. At 270 degrees Fahrenheit, fluid life collapses dramatically. Every 20-degree increase in average operating temperature above the design target roughly halves fluid service life and accelerates internal wear on clutch packs, seals, and solenoids. An auxiliary transmission cooler mounted in front of the radiator with dedicated inlet and outlet lines that bypass or supplement the factory cooler can drop average transmission fluid temperatures by 30 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit under load. Products from brands like Derail, Hayden, and B&M offer bolt-on kits sized specifically for Toyota applications. The installation requires basic mechanical ability, a transmission line disconnect tool, some fittings, and a few hours of work. The impact is transformative. Fluid lasts longer. Adaptive shift behavior stays stable at operating temperature instead of drifting as heat rises. Clutch packs engage more consistently, and the transmission control module stops receiving thermal stress signals that force conservative shift behavior designed to protect a hot transmission from further damage. Owners who add an external cooler to a working Toyota transmission and simultaneously upgrade to fresh WS fluid often describe the result as feeling like a completely different vehicle. That feeling is real. The transmission is no longer thermally compromised. It is operating exactly as Toyota engineered it to operate. Here is the truth that ties all four of these upgrades together. Toyota builds transmissions that are extraordinary when they have what they need. Clean, correct fluid at the right temperature, an adaptive memory that reflects accurate data, and a mechanical environment free from drivetrain drag. When those four conditions exist, these transmissions run for 250,000 miles without drama. The tragedy is that almost no one gives them those conditions. Owners follow the dealership service intervals printed in the manual, intervals that were written conservatively to protect Toyota from warranty claims rather than to optimize long-term transmission health. They ignore the differential and transfer case entirely until something goes wrong. They never reset adaptive memory because they did not know it existed. And they wonder why a transmission that should have lasted 300,000 miles starts complaining at 150,000 miles. The driver with that dark blue Tacoma called me about a month after he picked it up. He wanted to know if what I had done was permanent. I told him it was not permanent in the sense of lasting forever, but it was permanent in the way that matters. He now understood what his transmission actually needed. He knew the fluid specification, the service interval, the reset procedure, and the temperature target. He had an external cooler. He knew when to check in and what to watch for. That knowledge changed his relationship with that truck entirely. He stopped being afraid of it. He stopped wondering when it was going to fail. He started understanding it. And understanding your vehicle is the only upgrade that truly lasts. If this video changed how you think about transmission maintenance, hit like so other Toyota owners find it before they spend money they do not need to spend. Subscribe if you want weekly breakdowns that give you real diagnostic knowledge instead of fear and confusion. Drop in the comments what Toyota you drive and how many miles are on it. I read every single one because the stories in those comments remind me exactly why this channel exists. Your transmission is not dying, it is waiting. Give it what it needs, and it will outlast almost anything else on the road.